Our Resilient Cape Cod project. We've updated this plan and talked to you about this over the course of the past several summits. And we'll be talking about that more today because the focus around coastal resilience and climate change is at the forefront of every discussion we're having. So as we all know, the Cape is defined by water. We have 1/3 of the Massachusetts coastline. So 19% of our region is actually in the FEMA Special Flood Hazard Area, which basically means this is an area that's at risk of flooding from hazards. What this accounts for is nearly $29 billion of assessed value in property in the Special Flood Hazard Area. If we look at the coastline and the impacts from hazards in our vulnerable areas in terms of systems, you can see that we have about 15,000 of the residences in that Special Flood Hazard Area, accounting for about $13 billion of the total assessed value. We have over 400 miles of roadways, which would be significantly impacted were we to see a sea level rise in these areas. 14,000 acres of salt marsh and 9,600 acres of barrier beaches in these areas. We also have critical facilities that have been identified by our local communities, and 30% of these are located in these areas. And then finally, about 1,500 inventoried historic structures are in this Special Flood Hazard Area. So it's imperative that we take a look at these systems in combination as we look to address some of our vulnerabilities in coastal resilience.
Hundreds of local municipal leaders, planning professionals, and citizen stakeholders joined the Cape Cod Commission at the annual OneCape Summit at the Wequassett Resort in Harwich on Monday and Tuesday. The OneCape Summit provided an opportunity for the 15 towns on Cape Cod to share and learn from each other for regional solutions to climate resiliency and adaptation, wastewater, housing, economic development, and transportation. Workshops in the morning and afternoon panels provided participants opportunities to hear solutions and programs from other states and cities, public-private partnerships, and collaborative and technical planning tools from the Commonwealth. Starting off the day, keynote speaker Eric Fisher, chief meteorologist for CBS Boston's WBZ-TV News, helped the audience understand the difference between weather and climate change. Channel 18 had a chance to speak with him after his presentation.
Just meet someone face to face, talk to a group of people, answer questions, and try to explain a little bit more about how we measure things and how things are changing and what they might expect in the future. One of my favorite analogies between weather and climate is that climate is your personality and weather is your mood. Meaning, climate is kind of your baseline state. Are you a happy person? Are you introverted or extroverted? Are you someone who tends to be a little grumpy in the mornings every day, or someone who loves a good party? So that's your personality. But in any given situation, you get cut off with someone at an intersection, or you had a bad day, you're having an excellent time at a wedding and dancing. That's your mood. Your mood can change on a dime, and it can be a few different things. Those are your storms, your severe weather events. But your personality is kind of your personality. It's what you're going to revert to. So when we talk about climate, it's altering that baseline, what you kind of revert to. What are you operating in? What's your operating system, if you will? You can still have these jumps. You have the severe weather that you would expect, but it can be changed if you change that base state. Yeah, there are things that we look at, and some are more noticeable than others, or trends we're more confident in than others. The big ones, temperature, number one, getting warmer. We've added more than 4 degrees at Blue Hill Observatory over the last 100+ years, and that's a significant number. That does start to change things for us. And when you talk about that much of a change, it means growing season is about a little more than 2 weeks longer than it used to be. Ice in and ice out dates have shrunk almost a month in some spots over the last 100+ years. So you're losing some things that you had before. Another thing we're confident in, increasing heavy precipitation events, meaning when it rains, it really rains a lot in a short amount of time. Even when it snows a lot in a short amount of time. So some more irregularities in precipitation. And sea level rise is another one that has certainly become very obvious to us as water continues to come up, and of course a big impact for Cape Cod. So the Arctic is warming 2 times faster than everywhere else, your lower latitudes. And a lot of that warming takes place in the cold season as warm, moist air is transported up into the Arctic. There's less of that type of a weather pattern in the summer, and a lot of the sun's energy goes into strictly melting ice. So we're at a record low for Arctic sea ice. This may be the lowest extent ever recorded this year. And Alaska in particular has seen some exceptional heat records. We've seen the same in Scandinavia. And so you see some more accelerated change in those higher latitudes than places that are closer to the subtropics or the tropics. Do research. You know, a lot of us, we fall into the trap of just like seeing something and saying this is true. Now, do some research into it and don't look for things that agree with what you already believe. You know, try to find some different points of view, do some critical thinking, and just try to look into the issue. Go to scientists. Don't go to, no offense to politicians, but go to the people who are doing the research and see what they have to say. Other people can frame it how they want, but scientists are on the ground and they're trying to figure out the best answers to the questions that we have. I'm Eric Fisher, WBZ TV, CBS Boston.